but has a specific background in intelligent clinical systems. Will be talking to us about the rules, orders, decision support, predictive analytics to get information not at the right place at the right time, but before you actually need it. Welcome.
Good afternoon to you all. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to be talking to you about a set of applications which potentially have the capacity to transform healthcare delivery. Now, this is not something that I'm saying in an attempt to hype what intelligent clinical systems can do. These are truly going to be, in the opinion of most experts in this field, the future application in healthcare IT in the near future. Much of it is already available, and it's up to us to try and use much of the technology and clinical analytics capabilities that are already available. So what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about trends in intelligent healthcare IT systems. So what do we mean when we say a system is intelligent? What are the kinds of intelligent systems that are available today? And then I'll run you through some examples of applications which are in vogue today. And finally, we'll talk very briefly about the adoption issues. I'll spend a few seconds on this slide simply because it very nicely illustrates one of the fundamental problems that we have when we talk of intelligent systems. 25 years ago, we didn't have so much of data. Today, we have a lot of data, right? We are making that transition from patient management up the chain to disease management, care management, and wellness management. And if you do this contrast between what wellness management requires vis-a-vis what patient management requires, you will then understand that wellness management requires an entirely different set of analytical tools and capabilities than what we currently have with patient management. So if, for instance, we need patient data, we need clinical data at the bottom of the pyramid for patient management, much of it is now already available. As we go up the chain, we move into the area of proactive analytics and alerts. Going further up the chain, we go into the area of predictive analytics, which is where the air sort of gets rarefied as you go to the top of the pyramid. So it's very important for us to understand that as we may talk a lot about wellness, but if you're looking at wellness management, merely having an electronic medical record is only going to be so useful. Beyond a point, you need different tools for that. The fundamental problem when we talk of intelligent clinical systems is really related to the difference between data, information, and knowledge. 25 years ago, we didn't have data. Now we do have mounds and mounds of data. The project that we are working on in the state of Tamil Nadu, we now have 23 million patient records. Think of the gold mine of data that is inside that. This data now needs to become information. To some extent, we've been successful there. What do I mean when I make the distinction between data, information, and knowledge? I'll give you a simple example. Here is a patient who's diabetic, and I have a value of a blood sugar which is maybe 450. I also have a urine ketone report which is positive. Now, this is data. The information that it then tells me is that here is a patient who's got a very high blood sugar and abnormal amount of ketones in the urine, which is good. But the knowledge that I need to derive from that is, here is a patient who's very close to getting into a ketoacidotic state. Should you be sending his arterial blood gases or his serum electrolytes and check it out right away? So that's the difference between data, information, and knowledge from a clinical parameter perspective. And it's very important to note that a lot of the data which is available is now getting converted into information, but very little of it is actually becoming knowledge. What are the trends that we're seeing here? The trend is to move from retrospective to proactive and predictive. All our systems are geared to telling us how many cases of influenza H1N1 did I get from a particular locality yesterday. How many of our systems are telling us where are your H1N1 patients going to come tomorrow? That is the fundamental difference between retrospective analytics and proactive and predictive analytics. The tools, believe you me, are already there. It's just that we need to step up the level of adoption. Back-end availability, a lot of analytics, clinical analytics, we're doing data warehousing, we're doing data mining, everything is there in our system. Yes, but how often are your clinicians being able to look at it? How often is this information being available at the point of care? How often is it immediately being of benefit to the patient? It's good that it's at the back end. At least somebody is starting to look at it. Maybe 3 years, 5 years' time, it would come into mainstream clinical care. How many of our systems are dynamic alert based? And we'll talk about this a little later. Today, for any clinical intelligence systems, there are multiple stakeholders, starting with the patient. Why is the patient? The patient is the most important stakeholder in the chain. How often does he get to see and have an opportunity to assess how he is doing vis-a-vis other patients and assess his clinical profile? So we need to make these systems patient-centric. We need to integrate them with decision support systems, which are a very, very vital part of clinical analytics components going forward. And most importantly, we need to have measurable benefits and outcomes. How beneficial are these systems? Is the level of clinical analytics that we're actually putting into these systems actually translating into a benefit in terms of better quality of care? I just want, if you remember nothing else from this presentation, remember 4 Ps: predictive, proactive, prospective, and pattern recognition. These are the 4 most important trends that we see in clinical intelligence systems, not even of the future, of the immediate future, and some of it is already there today. We need tools which are intelligent, which are predictive, which can tell us what's going to happen tomorrow. It's got to be proactive. It's got to stop us at the point of care and tell us, hey, this is what is going on, so maybe you should check this out. It needs to be prospective. I need to be able to follow up over a period of time, and I need to look at patterns within clinical data. I'm going to take a second on pattern recognition, a major area in clinical intelligence systems. When I know what to look for, I can generate a report. I can mine data. I can do anything as long as the variables that I'm searching for are known. When I don't know what I'm looking for, why should I look for it? Is the obvious question. Most of healthcare development and research in the healthcare area actually comes from identifying patterns. Currently, how do they identify patterns? Somebody noticed it, they published a paper, another doctor noticed it in some other corner of the world, they collaborated, and this led to the discovery of something. Here you can pick up patterns in clinical data in minutes. Imagine how much of benefit there could be to thousands and millions of patients around the world if you actually reduce the lead time in clinical research. Supporting new discoveries. Pattern recognition is a huge, huge area of clinical analytics. Dynamic alerts are these condition-specific dynamic alerts, patient-specific dynamic alerts, integrated with the electronic medical record, available at point of care, has a major, major impact on outcomes. And on this particular thing, there have been many studies that have been published globally on how dynamic alerts integrated into your electronic records can actually make a world of difference. Again, the key is having them as part of electronic medical record systems where the doctors themselves, the clinicians themselves, are capable of generating their own alerts. So I'm just going to take a few quick examples. So this, for instance, is a very, very simple example of how clinical intelligence systems work. So you have data from multiple devices coming in. This is an outpatient setting, so you have simple equipment like an ECG or a blood pressure or a glucometer, a non-invasive hemoglobin, which is now out in the market, a pulse oximeter, and so on. And this data actually is captured, and this data goes into the, in this case, it's an iPad or a tablet of any kind, Android. From there, this data is then pushed through to the servers where the analytics engine actually does its job, and then the outcome, the output is actually made available immediately at the point of care to the doctor. This is being done in India today. It is being done globally. It is not rocket science, and it doesn't cost a bomb. So this is very important to understand. The same concept is extendable to critical care units, where you can interface the central monitoring systems, you can interface the ventilators, you can interface the infusion pumps. There's a very interesting project that one of our teams is doing where they're working on picking up data from a sensor on the patient's body, identifying a particular parameter, and then modifying the dosage or the rate of infusion of the infusion pump which is delivering the medicine into the patient. This is here and now. Nothing is futuristic as far as these concepts are concerned, and they are not, from a technology perspective, really as complex as many of us believe. This would be an example of a very basic analytic system. So, for instance, this would be my dashboards, my reports, my various operative key performance indicators, which is great. There's no attempt to belittle any of these things. These are very critical. At the end of the day, day-to-day operations are run on the basis of the information that these are giving us. But today, we have the potential to go much further than this. So you can use it for disease surveillance, you can use it for forecasting, you can use it for what-if analysis. A huge number of things can actually be done. One of the major challenges was, I've got a lot of textual data, how do I mine this data? And now there are tools to mine textual data. We, for instance, have tools which are based on natural language processing, which can actually pick up and sift medical terms from this data. And what's more, we can actually even map relevant medical terms in the data to ICD or CPT codes or whatever. So there are tools now which can work on simple textual data. You don't need, of course, obviously it's going to be better to have structured data, but if you do have unstructured data and you don't want to lose out on the information that could potentially be available, we now have the tools, not us, not just us, there are many others who have tools to make this possible. I'm just going to show you 2 or 3 examples very quickly. This is the analytics platform that we built for one of the largest eye hospitals in Asia, the Shankar Nethralaya Group. Today, if they wanted to know how many patients came in with glaucoma, who actually came from a particular region, who also had diabetes and who had a raised intraocular pressure, it takes